Good afternoon. As Senator Kelly pointed out, certainly there are many issues that we are seeing as we're embarking on this regulatory process. And we're asking this governor and the Commissioner Dykes to suspend this regulatory process and provide a plan of how we are going to implement an all-electric vehicle system in the state of Connecticut. I have never been approached by more constituents, especially in a summertime period, of people who now have great anxiety. They're grabbing me in the grocery store, at church, questioning how they're going to be able to transition their ability to utilize a vehicle from gas power to electric power. This is a real concern of residents throughout the state of Connecticut. But I would also say the bigger concern is the approach that Connecticut is now taking by making our electric companies the biggest adversary in the state of Connecticut. We saw that through the recent public hearings that PURA has begun embarking on a systemic attack on our electric grid through the state of Connecticut through its regulatory process. You know, by most accounts, people have said that we need to increase our electric supply by 60% in order to accommodate the requirements that are being set forth in these regulations. In August of 2022, I asked the governor to be more transparent with this process because we knew it was coming down the pike as California was changing their emission standards. And the response I got from the Commissioner Dykes, that it took her 3 months to respond, was that it's going to take 2 years for manufacturers to be able to transition to electric fleets so they can manufacture this vehicle. We're giving them 4 years. But again, they neglect to talk about how these vehicles are actually going to be charged. It makes no sense to lead with the actual vehicle, but not lead with the actual energy source that's needed in order to power these vehicles. We want to know how they're going to increase production of our electric grid by 60% by 2027. We want to know how they're going to make vehicles more affordable for our seniors and middle class and lower income class residents. We want to know how individuals that are living in dense housing, affordable housing that we so push throughout the state of Connecticut, is going to be able to charge their vehicles with off-street parking, or excuse me, with on-street parking. These individuals that live in our urban centers, are they going to have charging stations made available to them?
And I want to echo the words of my colleagues. This is an issue that's going to affect everyone living in the state of Connecticut. As Representative Candelora mentioned, I can't recall receiving so many concerned emails, phone calls from residents. The average period of time somebody keeps a car nowadays is 12.7 years. 12.7 years. We talked about the prices. I buy a car this year. I go to shop in 2035. Is my new vehicle, my trade, worth nothing? Or is it going to be worth what I paid for it today because there's a great market for gas-powered vehicles? Do we outlaw gas stations? No, we don't do that. Senator Kelly talked about environmental justice communities. We hear so much about food deserts. What about fuel deserts? You live in an apartment. You live in subsidized housing. Do you have a charging station anywhere you can use it? Is there a gas station within reasonable distance? How are you going to actually have that vital piece of equipment that 95% of Connecticut residents rely on to get to work? And we hear a lot about our special transportation fund. Well, if we're not filling our cars and trucks up with gas and diesel, we're not getting that petroleum tax. Actually, House Republicans suggested this year that we start adding a $300 a year fee to electric vehicles. If you're using the road and you're not buying gas, surely you should have to pay for it. And the average EV is 1,500 to 2,000 pounds more in weight than a conventional gas-powered car. Not only is that more damaging to the roads, the particulate pollution from tires will come to exceed tailpipe emissions.
Our issues are no different than the car issues. It's a cost issue. $150,000 for a diesel truck, $450,000 for a new electric truck. And we're going to be required to buy those trucks on an increasing basis from 2027 through 2035. And one of the issues there, and we're talking about costs, when we're following CARB, right, we got to file the identical regs. In doing so, they've already started in 2024 a sales requirement in California of 5 to 9%. We're going to start in 2027, California's fourth year, which is actually a 15 to 20% sales requirement for trucks in the state of Connecticut if you're buying a new truck. So you can imagine, we don't know how we're going to come up with that cost. We don't know how we're going to catch up with this cost. We argued earlier this session about the fact that we were having saddled with a highway use tax. That highway use tax did some damage to a number of our carriers who ended up having to close down their businesses. This only exacerbates that.